Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Evolving Architect. I'm Mike LaValle, and maybe these shades aren't really working for me. What do you think? Probably not. No, I don't think so. So, sorry about that. I guess I'm not Casey Neistat. So, I am working again on my career, and this is my weekly update to you guys to let you know sort of what I've been doing. And this week has been really interesting. Maybe not interesting as much as productive. Productive is a better word. It's been a fairly normal week, except for the little free library I told you guys about last week. I've been really working hard to try to finish that up, and now it doesn't look like a giant pile of wood, which is great because it really can't. It needs to function as a little library. So one of the things I've been doing this week is taking all the kit parts pieces that I have and trying to stitch them together. Basically what I've been doing is taking 2-inch screws and deck screws and screwing each piece together by hand with a drill. And that's after actually drilling 400 almost holes into 80 pieces of wood. And since I don't have a drill press, I'm finding that that's a little bit difficult by hand. Luckily, I have a corded drill, which is good, and I have the right drill bits for it. But one of the things that I've been working on and realizing through all this process, since I'm not I wouldn't say I'm very handy, but I'm getting better with the sort of the crafts making and my abilities in physically making things through this process. One of the things that I noticed and that I've been really working on is letting myself be able to make some mistakes. You know, one of the great things about wood is that it is just such a warm material to work with, and when you do it right, it works really well. But when you don't, you notice every imperfection. So one of the things I've been doing is trying to make sure that anything that I see or will end up seeing in the final library is actually something that I'm taking a little bit more time with. So, you know, looking at the actual design, the pieces are sort of strung together to create these planes, and the planes that are attached to the corners with holes that are drilled through, and then there's a sort of a finger joint so that they come together, and a steel rod gets sort of sewn through all of them so that they're sort of all strung together in a way that is structurally stable and doesn't require me to have some sort of like weird looking tree trunk through the whole thing to support it all. So one of the things I've been doing is when I stitch them all together is I have to line them up in sort of a succession. And the funny thing about it is that even with a laser cut template to show me where the holes go, nothing is perfect. But I have to accept it because, you know, this thing has to have tolerances, and I need to be okay with the fact that it's not going to be perfect, and I have to come up with ways to sort of, I guess, hide the imperfections as best I can, but also not worry about everybody seeing every little piece. So what I've done is I've drilled all the holes, right? And then I stitched 2 or 3 pieces together at a time. And then I sort of re-drill holes as I go so that, you know, as best I can, make sure that the holes will be continuous from one end to the other. And this has been making it a little bit easier on me because then I can tell sort of generally that it's all going to work out. I don't know for sure, which is the kind of scary part here, but I'm fairly certain that it's going pretty well. And after I've done that, I've been sort of stitching those 3 or 4 pieces together at a time. They'll end up creating surfaces, and then I'll be able to see sort of all the surfaces come together. So I'm at that point where it's not really a little library yet, but it's getting there. And I think the important lesson that I learned this week is that the tolerances that you have when you're physically making something have to be in the design. You know, you can look at a computer design, you can look at a 3D SketchUp model, which is what I made this in originally to figure it all out, but you're never going to be able to make sure that all of the holes are drilled perfectly, all of the edges line up perfectly unless you have a little bit of tolerance there, so that when you're physically using real materials, that they line up and that they work with the design that you intended. So it's a work in progress, and it's definitely an important lesson to learn, but I'm glad that I'm learning it as I go, and I'm glad that I'm learning new little tips and tricks to sort of make the process work for me, so that I ultimately get what I wanted from the whole process and the design, but I don't kick myself too much for making a couple mistakes. So if you like this video, please let me know. The other thing I'd like to do moving forward is answer questions. I don't know if it's going to be in this content or another form, but if you guys could leave either a comment about the episode now, or leave a question about something you'd like to know, whether it's about how to be a better architect, or things about your architectural career, whether or not there's a best way to go about making something like a little free library, or anything about architecture in general. I really like to hear your questions, and I can't wait to answer them. So thanks guys, and I'll see you next week.